Hi, Awakening. My name is Liv, and right now I wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite Christian buzzwords or Christianese words, and that's the word fellowship. And I would challenge you as I'm talking about the word to maybe think of what fellowship means to you and how you would define it. So, my loose definition of the word fellowship is connecting with others for faith centered conversations in a sense of community or belonging, right? So, it's just coming together. And somebody who I recently just talked to actually said that fellowship to them was a mutual love. So, coming together, and two different people, two different things coming together with this mutual love for each other. And I really like that image just because I feel like it exemplifies the way I would like my relationship with God to be always. And so, anyway, I just continue thinking about that. But what I really wanted to talk about today was how we can use body language to influence our fellowship when we can't meet face to face, and a lot of our communication is very virtual. So, with that being said, this is Zoom call fellowship. Okay, so when we're on Zoom, we don't get that same face-to-face interaction, right? It's there's the not like this. It's harder to feel empathy when we're not, really next to people and we're talking through a screen. And there are a lot of distractions that happen, right? So maybe a text pops up on your screen and you read it real quick and then you're like, oh shoot, and then you swipe it up. Or maybe, I don't know, let's see. Oh, that little square in the little bottom of my screen that just it's my little face, and it's so distracting because sometimes I get really worried about how I'm presenting myself, what the other person is seeing. And I have to remind myself that that's not quite as important as making the other person feel listened to, right? Making the other person feel heard. And so I wanted to talk about some ways that we can use our body language to just really revamp that communication when we can't have it in person. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is just picking a quiet place, a location where you feel like you can be yourself. Like if you were going to go on a walk with a friend and talk with them, it's kind of creating that same environment, right? Like you're trying to make it as real as possible, even though we're kind of living in this very virtual time. And then the second thing is body language, right? Body language, body language, body language. It's so huge. It's the majority of all of our communication is what our bodies are saying, right? So our words actually mean a lot less than what we think they do. So the first thing I wanted to kind of point out is when we're communicating with people virtually, they can't see our whole bodies, right? So we're kind of confined to this little screen, and oftentimes, right, we're holding our phone like this, or laying in our beds, right, and it looks like this, or, whatever it is. So you want to just make sure, sometimes what helps me is just setting it up right here, like on a table, and so then that way, people who use their hands when they talk like I do, or, who use head tilts and gestures and who tend to move around a lot can really give people that full experience of their personality, their person, basically. So that's really important, as well as doing a lot of things that you maybe don't think intentionally about when you're with somebody, but that you maybe have to think more intentionally about when you're acting virtually. So for example, when we listen, a lot of times we lean in, right? And we lean in and our eyebrows maybe furrow, or maybe they rise, or when we react. And I think we get desensitized on technology to a lot of emotion. And so reconnecting that way and really leaning in, really understanding, just thinking about the ways that we can connect virtually like we would if we were in person, and just trying to give people our undivided attention. And just as important as it is to make others feel heard, it's important for us to communicate our needs, right? So we need to communicate our needs so that we feel heard too. And sometimes just having a quick conversation like, hey man, can you stop eating? I really need to have this important talk with you, can mean a lot to somebody. And if you say it in the right way, it can go a long way for your conversation and a relationship. So yeah, I just want to end this video by saying that right now there's a lot of, racial, religious, political tension that all impacts people in different ways, right? Depending on how you grew up, depending on where you grew up, depending on your specific faith and your beliefs. And I think what it really comes down to is communication. So are we fully communicating in the ways that we feel are necessary to understand each other? I think all of this tension, all that's happening is just a lack of understanding. And so how can we as Christians be the bridge between different peoples, be the bridge between similar people? Because we're in a very divided time in our nation right now, and it's just really important to use our bodies, use our voices, use our hearts to show others that they're as important as every other person on this earth. Yeah, and I think that especially now, COVID time, a lot of people are frustrated because all that we can use right now to raise our voices, right, is social media. And if you, I don't know, obviously there are protests and there are things that people are showing up to, but in order to keep our loved ones safe, sometimes it's hard to justify attending those things even if we think they're important, or even if, they don't necessarily align with our views. And somebody recently told me that right now could be your time to just think about what to do next. Think about your mission, think about your purpose, think about what God wants you to do in this time. And I just encourage you guys to really be intentional about virtual conversations and try to have the tough conversations with your loved ones, with your friends. And yeah, that's all I have to say. All right. Praying for you guys. Bye.